Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. All things Middle-earth here. I want to talk really quickly about the new temporary camp update, which affects how you can relocate your city in the game. So stay tuned, that's coming up in just 1 second. Now, if you've not seen this, is posted in the main Discord. It says relocation adjustments, a new map construction, temporary camp. Each tactician can build a temporary camp on the map, which will cost a certain amount of time and resources. Building a temporary camp enables you to relocate your settlement here after its completion. It is no longer possible to relocate a settlement to a land where a temporary camp has not been built. So they've done away with the old way of relocating where you make a 3x3 on the 1x1 resource tiles, and they've made it to where you have to make a 3x3 build a temporary camp, which is going to cost some resources as well as time. I'll put on the screen here what it looks like when you're building the camp so you can see how much resources it does cost, but it will cost you 500 gems or a relocation token. If you don't have a token, it'll show the gems there, which I actually think is a nice thing because the amount of people that I kept telling you could use gems to relocate who did not know that previously is kind of high. So at least the game showing us we can do that is kind of nice, but again, a lot of people don't like to use gems to relocate, so I get that. But you can use gems or use a relocation, which is available in your fellowship store. And once you have one of those, you can build a temporary camp, which I just did 5 minutes ago, and it's going to take 2 hours to construct. Once it is completed, I can then move my city to this spot. But everything else is the same in terms of where you can build this and what regions you can build it in. You can't build it next to rivers or mountain or other cities, all those normal things. So if I had gone over and tried to build it with these tiles right here that I didn't use, it's touching the city and it could not have done that. So pretty standard, but it's just going to slow down the process by 2 hours. So I'd love to hear what you think, but I do have some pros and cons for this new update. Now let's talk about the cons first. And honestly, I feel like it could be a pro or a con depending on the type of player you are, because the con to me is it slows the pace of the game. You can no longer quickly make a 3x3 and pour it in somewhere and do something strategically for your team. A lot of times entire fellowships or small clusters within a fellowship would move to an area to take a keep, to uproot other cities, to take out a fellowship fortress, whatever it is. So teams that are able to coordinate very well could quickly mobilize and use the previous relocation feature to really surprise their enemies and get things done very quickly. So that is no longer something to be done. Again, it's something that I've done. It's something that's happened to me this season. There were several times where we were looking around the map in very strategic areas and would see 3x3s starting to be built very quickly, and we could not usually react fast enough to break the 3x3s before they moved their cities in. So in this scenario now, we would see a bunch of temporary camps popping up and we'd have 2 hours to take those out. So it's a con if you're the one moving in and you're the one who's being more strategic or maybe more coordinated with your group to move quickly. It's a pro if you're the one who's being moved in on and you want a little bit more time to react and hopefully break the temporary camp so they don't move into whatever region they're trying to move into. The other con for this is, like I'll show on the screen here, it does cost resources to build this temporary camp. And while it's not a lot, it just seems like a weird addition. It's not something that was the case before, and now all of a sudden it costs a little bit. Again, not a crazy amount, but it seems silly to all of a sudden require materials to build this because it's something that players haven't been used to, and now I'm sure it's something people will look at a little bit less favorably, but it does cost more than it did, even if it's just a little bit. Now, in terms of pros, to be honest, I don't really have a whole lot of pros to point out for this feature. Like I said, it's a pro if you're the one being moved in on, if you have a bunch of people moving in to attack one of the keeps you have, or maybe on a border that your cities are at and they're going to uproot you, whatever it is. It's a pro if you're the team on defense, but it's a con otherwise. In overall, I think mechanics like this that slow down the pace of the game usually aren't very fun. Again, our season has been over for I don't know how many weeks now. We've got 4 days left until our timer ends, and it's been over for a very long time. So my issue that I have is it seems like instead of adding content in a season or manually intervening and ending seasons when they are over without having a timer, they just keep implementing things that I think they think will slow the pace enough to where there aren't dead servers like this, but it's just never been the case, and it makes the gameplay experience less enjoyable for the player. At least in my experience, everything they've done to slow the early game, to slow the mid game, whatever it is, to me, it's made the experience less fun to play. It doesn't really slow the game down enough to where our seasons are lasting the entire timeline, and now you're just stuck with a slower game that still ends the same way. So I don't know why they are opposed to or just not willing to talk about it, but it just seems like they don't want to add content into servers or into seasons that players can additionally do while fighting other groups that would, prolong or add more stuff for people to do. Instead, it's everything stays the same, but we're going to keep slowing down what we can and hope that makes servers last longer. At least that's my perception. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but it just seems like everything you do is slow down, slow down, slow down, instead of adding content so there's more to do and players can play at the pace that they want to. But it does seem like it might favor those who play a little bit more casually or socially, who aren't on 24/7. So in that regard, if that's you, this might be a good thing because it gives you time to react. But again, also if you're a player who plays very little or you log on once or twice a day, you might get on and not be able to be on 2 hours later when you need to move your city. But if you could have previously just built a 3x3 and moved your city, you'd be keeping up with whatever your group's doing. So I could see pros and cons to both sides, but overall I feel like it's a con, at least for me, how I like to play, and just for the general state of the game where I feel like things that slow down aren't usually good and things that add content are. And to me, this feels like no content added, just let's add 2 hours to something that was already a feature in the game. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know down below what you think. And as always, I'll see you all in a future video.